No, I feel now it's being recorded. Got it. Okay, so perfect. So we're gonna get started. Thank you for all of everyone for being in attendance this afternoon and taking time out of your day today. So my name is Jesus Lizarraga. Pronouns he, him, his. I work at the University of Northern Iowa, and I oversee freshman recruitment at UNI and in our campus visit programs. So I'm very excited to be with you all today. And then I have a colleague who is joining me for the presentation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Juan Hernandez. I also work at UNI, so I'm a freshman admissions counselor. This is going to be my second year here, so I started in September 2019, and I graduated in May of 2019 from UNI. So plenty of experience in undergrad, of course. So I want to talk about how to get involved on your student campuses and yeah, how to get started with that. So.
And I wish that this wasn't a webinar, that it was more of like a Zoom where we were all meeting together so we could all see each other, do some intros, kind of get your experiences, professional experiences, work experiences, personal experiences to see how we can engage. But feel free to use the Q&A, the chat button. In no way, shape, or form are we experts, right? We're just bringing our own perspective, our lens, our experiences. And I'm not gonna lie, I do feel a little bit more pressure because today is MLK Day. So we will see how this goes. So let me open up our presentation and then I'll share my slide here. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you all can see it. Can you guys see that? Elizabeth, can they see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we titled, when Elizabeth reached out to us, Elizabeth wanted something around equality and equity. And when we started to kind of decipher what that means, right, to me, it means more than that. So we titled this Organize and Strategize Social Justice on College Campuses. Now, when we look at and think about equality versus equity, I think that this picture has become the epitome for describing what that means, right? We've all seen it in our different social media outlets, whether you've been using Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. This always tends to come up, this picture of these three people looking at a baseball game and not having the same access to viewing it, right? So equality versus equity, we see here, equality, everyone gets the same box, but we still have people that cannot see the game. Equity is providing the specific need that they need in order to be able to view that game. So as you can see, the second person gets a box, the third person gets 2 boxes. If we look deeper at that, there's still a barrier in place, and that's that fence, right? So when we talk about equality and equity, what we truly need to be asking ourselves and talking about is justice, right? How do we reach that and eliminating those systemic barriers that may be in place and removing that? We don't need the box, we need to get rid of that fence. In addition to that, we want to talk more about liberation, truly removing that barrier and then including the people in the process. So we shouldn't be talking about equality and equity. What we should be describing is justice, liberation, and inclusion. Now, some of you may have read this book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and I wanted to kind of bring this in because we talk about oppression, and we have to truly understand what oppression is, how we are oppressed, and how we ourselves, based on our different identities, biases, can become oppressors as well. So Paulo, I can never pronounce his last name, so excuse me for that, describes the oppression as the humankind central problem, right? And that there's 2 different ways of seeing it, is humanization and dehumanization. Humanization is the process of becoming fully human, which is a process that a lot of oppressed people have to go through or view as having to go through. And dehumanization is the opposite of that. Now for oppressors, right, those committing oppression, having power or having anything is more important than humanity itself. They do not recognize privilege, which dehumanizes others. And the very act of oppression is violent because it prevents the oppressed from being fully human. Now, the quote that I derived from this excerpt was, "The oppressed cannot exist without the violence of oppression, yet when they fight back against their oppressors, the oppressed are often labeled as violent themselves." And I think that we see that we've experienced it in some way, shape, or form. With the kneeling of Colin Kaepernick, right? That was viewed already as violent by the oppressors. Just that very act alone of fighting back was seen as violent. So anything that we do as oppressed will always be seen as violent for them. We cannot truly also reach liberation until the oppressor destroys their own power. So now there's two different kinds of oppressors. There's active oppressors and passive oppressors. Active oppressors are the policymakers, right? The legislators, senators, congressmen, that trickles down. It can be institutional policies, right, at a college level of who is being included in this policy, who is being excluded on this policy. Active oppressors can also be, police officers who have power, who harass or abuse, and at times kill Black citizens, people of color. So it's anybody who has the power to influence certain things. Passive oppressors, on the other hand, are people who benefit from the active oppressors, from that legislation that took place, right? So it might be, in this case, white people who enjoy living in the best neighborhoods, best jobs, best schools, best healthcare, right? But that's at the expense of their Black and people of color, their counterparts, who are not entitled to the same access. Now, passive oppressors encompass the largest percentage of the population, right? And this is the hardest people to convince that they are oppressors. A lot of times they are derived by this sense of false generosity, this feeling that I have a friend of color, I have a gay friend, I helped them in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, I'm not oppressing them, right? I am helping them. I feel like a better person because I'm helping, quote unquote, when in reality, they're perpetuating oppression, right? We don't need people to save us, right? And this is this whole nice white people syndrome. True generosity comes from fighting the causes that lead to the oppression. And in order to eradicate oppression, what we truly need is for you to give up your power. So you need to give up your entitlement, your power, your access. That's truly how we're going to get help the oppressed. Now, we've also heard this word a lot, right? Allies, accomplice. I'm going to show you a clip by Austin Channing Brown. She's an author, advocate, and she does a pretty good job of describing the difference between an ally versus an accomplice. So let me see if I can just copy and paste this.
The language.
I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to share again so I can get the sound. Okay, we see the screen, right? Okay, here we go.
Language that has been popularized over the last few decades is, what does it mean to be an ally? Black women are starting to use the phrase accomplice. You could call yourself an ally and pat yourself on the back and probably feel really good about yourself. Or you could hop in the car next to me and decide to break some rules, decide to go where I'm going, and say, you know what? You go to jail, I'm going to jail. That is what it means to be an accomplice. It means to be all in. It means every risk that you are going to assume, I assume too. I'm not gonna leave you out there. I'm not gonna leave you by yourself. I'm in it with you, day 1 to day 100. I'm not leaving.
Okay. Do we see the slide back here? Allies versus accomplice?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see, she did a pretty good job of describing kind of the difference in two. And I think many times what we encounter with passive oppressors is this whole notion of ally. I am an ally. So what does that truly mean? Even today, during MLK Day, we see a lot of people posting quotes from MLK, excerpts from his speech, when every other day, right, they stay silent when there is violence committed against people of color, marginalized people. And that silence says more than quotes on a specific day, right? We don't need allies, we need accomplice. Me personally, I don't believe in the term ally. And I put this quote on here too. To me, it's performative to think that you need a title in order to support somebody else's rights, right? To me, you should just simply show up, do the work, be quiet, and keep it moving. I don't need to give you a title for just doing what's right, right? So that's my own belief. So I will continue. Now, in that book also describes that the oppressed will only fight against their oppressors when they are joined together. When we speak up as marginalized people, many times when we speak up, we're risking a lot, right? We may be risking our jobs. We may be risking, in certain times, our lives. So many times we look at coming together in order to speak up and creating power. What we truly do, which is kind of sad and kind of got me a little depressed as I was reading this book too. It says that oppressors will not give up their power unless they're forced to, right? So they have to give it up. The oppressed will never gain it unless they're willingly able to give it up, the oppressors. But one thing that we have to know, and I think we see it a lot sometimes, is that we ourselves have to be careful to not become the oppressors as well. So as we gain some sort of power, ensuring that we keep that power doesn't become our blind side, that we are not perpetuating oppression ourselves as we tend to move up in some sort of power that we obtain. So as we try to tie it back with college campuses, right? I think that developmentally we are all in different places as we enter college, understanding who we are, our identities, what our blind side are, our blind spot is. So we wanted to kind of give you some ideas of how to effectively combat specific barriers, institutional barriers that may be in place, and ensuring that we ourselves don't become oppressors as well. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Juan, and he'll give you some points.
All right. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Juan Hernandez. Just to kind of introduce myself and give myself some background experience. So I came to the University of Northern Iowa in 2016. I'm a transfer student. I was a transfer student, and I am a first-generation student. So coming to college campus, it definitely looked a lot different to me. I guess I didn't really know what to expect or what to get involved in. So I kind of just wanted to establish some kind of 3 easy steps on what you can do to kind of get involved on your campus. That way you don't get burnt out. You kind of don't, get overwhelmed, because I mean, it can get kind of overwhelming. We've seen this definitely in the summer with the protest for George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protest. Again, we don't have the luxury of just focusing on our education. We kind of have to focus on, fighting for our rights as people of color, people from underrepresented groups, and so on. So basically, I'm going to go over these 3 topics. So, where do I get started? What's my first step? So your first step is kind of to get involved in pre-established groups and organizations. You might have been doing this, it might be your first year, you're kind of like, okay, let me join an organization I'm comfortable with. You can do this by visiting your Student Life website. Again, find some organizations like Black Student Union, Latino Student Unions, UNI Pride groups, whatever it is, where there's a large groups of students who you identify with. This will definitely help you in the long run, making friends. You have somewhere to go where you can feel like you have a safe space. You can talk about your issues that you're going through, any problems. Again, this group of people is going to be, most of the time, is going to be a lot of people who kind of sympathize with you and understand what you're going through. The second step is to kind of organize and strategize. So again, a lot of these groups can kind of be seen as social groups. A lot of students have different priorities. So you kind of have to decide what you want to do, outside of that organization. So I was actually a part of a Latin fraternity on campus, Lambda Theta Phi. This is a national fraternity, but we have a chapter at UNI. But I also was in group, joined in Unidos, our Hispanic Latino student unit. So, I loved Unidos. We did a lot of fun stuff, but when it came to doing social justice events or, academic events, stuff like that, to kind of help our own people out, that's where I went to Lambda Theta Phi. I wanted to get more of that work done. So if you aren't finding those organizations on your own campus, that's when you want to kind of create your own organization. There's a group on our campus, for example, that we created a Panthers for Dream Iowa chapter here at UNI, because in our Hispanic Latino Student Union group, there are some students who are passionate about undocumented students or fighting for immigration rights, immigration reform. And so rather than kind of transforming Unidos into that type of coalition, they created their own Panthers for Dream Iowa chapter. That way they could get allies involved, they can get other members of the campus involved. So again, this will give you great experience if you're looking to get into leadership positions, if you want to get on the exec board, become a president, stuff like that. But again, if you're finding something isn't on your campus, definitely take the charge and kind of make it your own thing. So the third step for me is to kind of get out of your comfort zone. It's pretty easy to preach to the choir. And again, I'll talk more about these steps in detail on the next slides. But again, get involved in organizations like your Northern Iowa Student Government, any like dorm activity boards, campus activity boards, stuff like that. So my first step, like I mentioned, getting involved in pre-established groups. It's important to not try to reinvent the wheel again. If you're starting from the ground up, it's really easy to get burnt out. For example, my chapter, Lambda Theta Phi, we're a fairly new organization, and there was nothing like that before us on our campus. But we did work with chapters at Iowa State University, University of Iowa. So we kind of bounced ideas back and forth, and we saw Iowa State was doing like a Latino Family Visit Day. So we decided, okay, why not kind of bring that to our campus? So again, same with Unidos. So like I said, when I first came to UNI, I didn't know what to expect going to college. So might be the same for all of you. So it's important to get involved with like-minded people. That's where I kind of joined Unidos. It gave me an opportunity to network, collaborate, get ideas for future events, especially for Lambda too. So like working with other student organizations can kind of help you with your own initiatives and movements that you want to get started. So this is going to definitely save you a lot of time and energy. Again, if you try to reinvent the wheel, you try to make everything new, you have these really great ideas, but you don't have kind of a system to kind of back off of that, you're definitely going to get burnt out pretty quickly. It's also a fun way to get your mind off of things, kind of recharge. Because, I mean, fighting oppression can honestly be tiring and taxing. Like I said, on our mental health is really important. As we've seen over the past few months, I mean, looking at the news, looking at all this, injustices going on, it can get really tiring and taxing. So, make sure you're having fun with people around you. It'll definitely get you more prepared to kind of do the heavier stuff. And we can go to the next slide. So the pre-established groups I was talking about, again, if you want to join your proud organizations, Black Student Union, Unidos, whatever it might be, again, that way you get familiar with those kind of groups, those people, network, connect, make friends. So the next step, going back to organizing and strategizing, again, it's really important for you to kind of be the change that you want to see. So don't wait for changes to happen. Don't wait for your pre-established organization to kind of take the charge. Sometimes they kind of just want that space to be for discussion or, time outside of the classroom where they can unwind. So again, if your school doesn't have an organization that you're passionate about, definitely create it. At UNI, they definitely have a lot of resources to help you get your organization started. They'll provide funding for you. So again, this is a really great way to kind of get funding for your organization. It's also important to understand that you need to provide grace and understanding to your pre-established group. So as I mentioned before, I was talking about Lambda Theta Phi and the chapter for Panthers for Dream Iowa. The difference between those two organizations is the Lambdas kind of went on their own path. We were kind of autonomous. We really wanted to do our own thing, create our own messages, stuff like that. But the issues that we ran into with the Panthers for Dream Iowa chapter is that there's a lot of guilt tripping. They would say, oh, this is an issue that you should care about. Why aren't you helping us out? Why aren't you joining? Stuff like that. So it's important to understand that other students might have priorities. Again, on campus, some people might not want to get involved with social justice. They would just want to get their education and get out. So there's also a privilege that comes with that. So understand that. I mean, race issues are super complex, and there's no easy answer on how to deal with that. So again, just kind of find your like-minded people in those pre-established groups, see if they want to help you out, join your exec board, or again, find people outside of that group. But it's important to be strategic. Again, use your resources, look for funding, look at other successful organizations and see what they're doing. That way you're not kind of on your own and struggling when you're trying to start the movement. And like I mentioned before, Lambda Theta Phi, we kind of did our own thing. We worked with our national chapters, our sector chapters. So sadly, our Panthers for Dream Iowa chapter kind of died out after a semester or two. So again, it's important to not kind of stale those relationships with your other peers and classmates. Again, it's really easy to turn some people off just because people have, again, priorities. Sometimes they want to act like nothing's happening just so they can feel better about themselves, about that they're not doing enough and stuff like that. So go to the next slide.
And I just want to add really quick too, is understanding right how student orgs are funded at a university level. Many times marginalized groups are underfunded, and many times they have to seek their own funding, create fundraisers, and instead of being a group that's dedicated to their mission that they sound out to be, they end up becoming fundraising organizations, right? Because they have to stay afloat. So many times there's issues within the group, but it might be an institutional issue too that may not be enabling them to be successful either.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we kind of found with Lambda is like we had so many great ideas and what we wanted to do, but unlike most fraternities who have been established there for a fairly long time, they had a lot of resources, a lot of great connections. We're kind of starting from the beginning and ended up having to need funding for a lot of things, and that was pretty much every other event was a fundraising event, and it just kind of burns you out, and you just feel like you're just spending your time raising funds. And so again, it's just really important to look for that funding. So a lot of the times it's hidden, it's not advertised to their students, so you kind of got to do your own research. And then my final step is getting out of your comfort zone. Again, change is very good. It's very easy to stay complacent. Again, it's very easy to stay in those pre-established organizations, or kind of work with those established organizations. So kind of join some other student organizations, like, again, like I mentioned, your student governments, your activities boards. That way you can see kind of how those organizations function. You also get to see how other students think, maybe students who, again, their priority isn't social justice, it's about getting an education, and see how you can kind of build those connections over time. So it's really important to understand that change takes time. It's very easy to get burnout, like I mentioned. Again, a lot of us, especially millennials, Gen Z, we have this tendency to have really great ideas, but we just don't know where to get started, and we get discouraged pretty quickly. So again, just talk to a lot of your staff, your professors, talk to your peers, and it'll definitely help you out if you kind of just vent. But so some takeaways that I want you to take from this presentation, again, is really how to advocate for yourself and how to advocate for others. So again, just don't kind of wait for things to change for themselves. It's really up to you. There's no right way to do things. So if you're really passionate about something, go for it. Again, just ask for advice. If you need to, do some research, look at other college campuses and see what they're doing. And then again, I want you to kind of see how you can initiate change on your own college campus. It's definitely difficult being incoming freshman. You're kind of worried about classes and all that great stuff, but there's so many opportunities for you to kind of advance your professional career as well. So, and Jesus, you wanted to add some things?
No, I think the other two are kind of self-explanatory. It's just truly understanding yourself. So we will leave it at that. So with that kind of wraps up our presentation for today. Once again, we envision that this is going to be more of a Zoom thing. So if there's any questions, things that maybe as a group we want to discuss, I recognize some names on the attendees on there. I see Carmen, shout out to Carmen. So I think if we want to have discussion or questions, things, we would be more than happy to do that.
I'll go ahead and give everyone the ability to unmute themselves right now. So if people want to speak.
Oh, they're coming in. Okay.
I think that's everybody.
Anyone, anything, we're all in the same page now.
I guess I'm kind of curious to know where you all are from, what kind of college, what's your college climate like, or what are some organizations that you're trying to get involved in, or you're not so sure about, that you have questions about?
I guess I'm wondering if you have any good advice on kind of strategies to get to know other groups on campus during the pandemic. Like, have you had much success reaching out to groups that you weren't very familiar with and creating relationships with them?
That's a good question. So I think a lot of our organizations on campus, and I still advise the Lambdas now that I work in admissions, so I kind of get to see what they're still dealing with the pandemic. And I think they're trying to do a lot of collaborations, but they're just not panning out. So that'll be definitely tough. I mean, we're hoping maybe in the summer that everything goes back to normal, but Again, emails have been king, pretty much emailing other maybe chapter presidents or members, but there hasn't been a whole lot of productivity in the student org side of things, as at least on our campus.
I think on my end, I also advise a student group. They are our ethnic student promoters, so they help assist in the recruitment of students of color on campus. And it's been hard, like that engagement piece, even within them, right? Because they all had to adapt to virtual learning. What does that look like? Things going on as we approach the 2020 election. So that heightened a few things. So we have met with the group every other week, and 1 week is virtual, the other week is in person for those who want to attend in person, with safety precautions because of COVID. But I think it's just been a hard and confusing year for a lot of people, especially folks of color, and how that has affected the pandemic them. So I cannot even imagine what that looks at a high school level, right? So definitely a lot of like thinking and rethinking of how we do things in order to engage our students, but honestly just ask like how are they doing, and academically, emotionally. So it's been a lot of that as well.
So I have a question. So given the climate that we're in today, and especially after everything that's kind of happened over the past couple of weeks and going forward, how would you suggest a student feel safe on campus?
That's hard because I even ask myself that, right? As a person of color, like how do I make myself feel safe on campus? And I think it's finding that community, that group of folks that are there to support you. We have very honest discussions with students about what's happening. And I think being able to even have those discussions in the office, unknowingly or knowingly, means a lot to them, that I don't have to silence you. You don't have to be silent about what's happening. You can fully disclose how you're feeling. And that might look very different, right? From campus to campus, or even within offices on campus too. I think that we're very fortunate to have a very diverse staff in our office. So a lot of students feel comfortable coming here and to other offices on campus, but there might be spaces where they don't. So I think it's seeking those spaces, knowing those spaces. So, and I mean, the last few weeks were just crazy. And I think that we're gonna see, hopefully we don't, but I think, this week, what that looks like too, and weeks to come. So I don't think this is going anywhere. It's just being able to find your people, and us as, I think, faculty and staff, to seek the students out too, and let them know that we're here as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When I did come to UNI, I was during the 2016 election, so that was even, I felt like that was even more hostile than kind of what we're going through right now. So finding those groups like Unidos, like Lambda, definitely helped me. It gave me like a safety net. It gave me people to talk to. Again, so like having those really tough conversations with members of your organization, people who understand you, it definitely helps out a lot. So I think that's pretty much what kept me sane, especially here at UNI, being a predominantly white institution. Was again having those people I can count on, and same with my staff and my advisors. Talk to your advisors who kind of plan out your schedule too, see how they feel about it, stuff like that. So again, you can never talk to too many people. It's also, it heals pretty well.
How do you go about like starting that conversation, right? I think that's the other thing of like feeling a need or a sensation of wanting to talk, or even just expressing yourself. How how would you advise to get to that point and building up kind of that courage, so to speak, to be able to talk about the issues?
I was gonna say, for me personally, I operated probably a little bit differently, or maybe not. For me personally, I like to make small talk, and then I can kind of like read people most of the time. So if it's someone I can trust, I slowly, see if we can kind of build that trust. And from there, if they turn out to be someone that I can trust, that's when I end up talking about the deeper stuff, like, what's going on with everything. Um, Again, you can really tell what kind of side a person's on when they share their opinions. I've definitely seen that in the office quite a bit. So again, just start with small talk and kind of open up, and see where their views are on side of things, and you can kind of tell who's your ally and who might not be. But sometimes you can't tell, because a lot of times we put up a mask.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions, um, or any thoughts, anything like that? Um, Again, you can use the chat, or you can unmute yourself, and just ask. So I'm hearing crickets. But thanks again, you guys, for taking the time out of your day, and just kind of talking to us about just an important issue that's going on, right? And especially with students, who are in the minority population. Um, just having that safe space and being able to talk, and knowing that there are people like you two on campus, that help out, and that they're able to reach out to you, um, and just be able to be okay with saying what they need to say.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Um, Thank you guys for attending, and stay safe, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.